In my experience, one of the things that separate good art from great art is vagueness. Let me explain. The definition of vague from Wikipedia, we'll start with that. Not clearly expressed, stated in indefinite terms, not having a precise meaning, not clearly defined, grasped, or understood. And we're starting to get a teaser trailer for how this applies to art. To me, vagueness is the lack of need to explain, portray, or give significance to every single detail in my art pieces. An artist who is able to allow a certain degree of vagueness in their art tends to speak to me more than others. And I'm definitely not alone in this. Now, this is not as much about having fewer details or abstracting or being confusing on purpose. Not at all. I would argue that vagueness is the type of thing that eliminates confusion and clutter, and in that way makes for much better painting results. But the thing that actually matters to me is that I'm not trying or working hard to show everything. I am, to a certain degree, detached from the literal things I'm seeing. So a tree, a field, a whatever. I'm detached from the specifics. And in that degree of detachment from reality, there is a kind of magic that begins to emerge. Things start working. The painting is no longer just a pretty recreation of a pretty photo. It starts to almost sing to the viewer. It has that X factor. You're not quite sure why, but you absolutely love it. Now, the reasons for this are probably many. I can list at least a few. It could be that this kind of vagueness creates a space for the viewer to almost bring themselves into the painting. What do I mean by that? They begin to interpret things their own way. If the details are fuzzy or a little abstract or a little impressionistic, they get to make an impression of their own, and they take your impression and make it their own in a way. It can also be that a decluttered space within your painting, the frame of it, is a very satisfying refuge from the messy, always-on everyday life. I certainly relate to that. And it could also be that the very act of abstraction and omission, removal of details, and vagueness and fuzziness of details inherently leads you as an artist to capture a scene more authentically. And why is that? Because it almost forces you to make it your own during the creation stage. You're not just copying what you're seeing. You're not creating a cliched, stylized replica of your subject matter. You're interpreting it and you're changing it and making it your own right there on the spot. Now, it's often hard to say exactly which of these factors I listed plays a role, but what I do know for certain is that when my hand paints with ease and with a certain level of detachment from reality, the end result ends up being more satisfying for me too, as the artist, as the painter who made the painting. And to be frank, I think this is where a lot of artists suffer. You might be able to relate to this. I think there's an inherent, almost primal desire to let go of reality to an extent and just paint with complete freedom your own vision of what you're seeing. And most beginners are so attached to what they're seeing, to all the small details, that they can't imagine not showing every bit of it on paper. And even if they could imagine it, when it's time to paint, they just can't figure out how to actually do it. And there's a good reason for that. That how to do it does not exist. If it were, anyone could follow this how-to and reliably and consistently create masterpieces. But look around you. Is that what you see? Everyone being able to always paint masterpieces? No, it isn't. It is only the very few who are able to do that. Because art and creation happens precisely in the intangible. You see, achieving this kind of mastery is way beyond just techniques. To me, it is more about your dialogue with the subject matter. It is how the subject matter makes you feel and then how you respond to that. The things you choose to as a reaction, as a response, to exaggerate, to contort, and to omit, to match whatever the subject matter makes you feel. So it's not about technique, but rather about the dialogue. And I would say, which sounds strange, succumbing to the inevitability that is the end result. Understanding that you have so little control over it, you might as well just give up on the little control you have, letting it paint itself, so to speak. That's what the more common term that's being used. Now, sometimes the subject matter might make you feel confused or happy or at awe. All of that, if you allow it, will seep into the end result. It will make it from just a copy or a cliche into a masterpiece. I hear this often from newer students of mine who say they just can't seem to let go and paint freely no matter what they try. Again, they're so attached to what they're seeing. And you know what? I probably don't have a complete answer to this question. Here's what I do know. The truth shall set you free. There's a reason this sentence is so powerful and has survived for thousands of years. It is my experience that the mere understanding of the truth leads to one finding their own creative solutions, thus their own freedom. And what is that truth I speak of? It is that the only way to create truly great art that goes beyond, that is completely awe-inspiring, that is completely inspirational for others, the only way to create that is from a place of freedom, absolute freedom. Anything else ends up being a waste of time. And I do believe most artists know that on a subconscious level. At the very least, you feel it. You spend hours on trying to render each and every small detail that you end up missing the big picture. The painting might look kind of pretty and kind of even accurate or realistic to an extent, but something is lost there. Some of the magic is gone. And once that becomes more and more apparent to you, once you thoroughly feel it and suffer from it, change begins to occur. Once you truly see how much this destroys your paintings and prevents you from achieving that very natural vagueness that comes with a masterpiece, you will start to change your behavior. Not because you want to, but because you simply don't have any other choice. It happens on its own. And once you see the true power of vagueness, you will start, perhaps even just on a subconscious level, just by watching this video and listening to my words, you might start to let it occur in your paintings. And it will make them more powerful, more unique, more awe-inspiring. Thank you for watching.